So just to remind everyone, this is our bi-monthly GSQ Quality Connection, where we will share updates, information, typically based on what all of you are interested in, what we hear from the last or the prior Quality Connection, things that we're hearing from our Resource Center staff, and then also updates and general information that we want to share about Great Start to Quality. Next slide. So this is our standing agenda. We'll typically follow this each time that we meet. And so we're in our sort of welcome and introduction phase. We'll have a presentation, and today it will be from the validation team for Great Start to Quality at ECIC. And then I will share some updates, and there will be a little bit of time for tips, and then certainly Q&A. We want to make sure that we spend time answering your questions and getting feedback. Next slide. My name is Christy Opsmer. I'm the Director of Systems for Great Start to Quality, so oversee the validation, assessment, and system portion of our process. We have several folks here with us today, and I will let them introduce themselves in just a minute when they start their presentation. So folks from the validation team will do that in just a second. Next slide. Just to level set, and we'll do this every time we meet to sort of ground folks that are attending. We are talking about the reimagined Great Start to Quality. And so this system launched back in February, so we're creeping up on a year, if you can believe it, where we shifted from star ratings to quality levels. And so really talking about the quality improvement process and how we move through that. And so if you recall, maintaining health and safety is a level that folks come in on when they just get their new license. And then participating in Great Start to Quality means reflecting and then enhancing and then going through the validation process, which is what you'll hear about today, and then demonstrating quality, which is sort of the space in which on-site observation happens. So next slide. So I will go ahead and turn it over to my esteemed colleagues on the validation team to introduce themselves.
Hello, everybody. I'm Melissa Mosley. I'm the validation manager for Great Start to Quality.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole Kretschmer. I'm one of the validators.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Guild. I'm one of the validators as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Allison Page, and I'm also a validator.
And then one of our other validators, Candace, is on the call, but she's just kind of doing the behind the scenes work. So we appreciate her very much. And I'm going to start getting us kicked off with some tips and tricks for the self-reflection, which is an important thing for validation. So we're going to fill out that self-reflection, and then that's what the validator is actually going to call you to talk about all the evidence that you uploaded into the self-reflection. So we have a few tips and tricks that we're finding can be helpful for folks. So the first one is related to the document vault. So some of you may be familiar with this feature, but it's new since we launched the Reimagine process back in February. But the document vault is a tool that's available right in your organization profile. So it's the very last tab in the organization profile where you can actually upload documents at any time. So we're kind of having folks think of it as like your virtual filing cabinet. So you can put things in there at any time. You can do it before you're ready to submit your self-reflection, or even when you're in the middle of the process working on quality improvement, or maybe your quality level is still valid for another 6 months or a year, but you want to start getting those documents in and prepared, you can upload them into your document vault. And then when you actually fill out the self-reflection, there's just a little button that you push, and you can retrieve those documents and link them right to the indicators, which can be super helpful. A couple of tips when using the document vault. The first piece is to make sure that you clearly label your documents in there. sometimes if you're scanning a document or taking a photo, your computer will automatically save it with a number of random letters or numbers, and then you might not remember which document it is or be able to easily reference it. So an important tip is to rename that document. So if it's a photo of the windows in your classroom to show that natural light, you just want to relabel it to like windows in classroom A or classroom B. Make sure that that's super clear. And then another tip would be to make sure that you're regularly updating those documents. So if you think about it as your virtual filing cabinet, in a real filing cabinet, you would replace an old document with the updated version and you would clear that out. So you want to do that in your virtual filing cabinet as well. The documents in your document vault are only valid or able to be used in the self-reflection for up to 2 years. So if you upload them this time and use them for your self-reflection, the next time you come through the process in 2 years, you'll have to update those documents. So if you do that in between, you'll want to make sure you just get in there and get everything updated. So that was our first tip, and I see Melissa put some resources. We have a video about it in the chat as well. And then our next tip and trick is related to the selection options in the self-reflection. So before the reimagine process, we only had 2 options. Were you meeting the indicator or were you not? And we've tried to provide more options for programs now to really meet the needs and let you focus on that quality improvement. So the 4 options that we have, the first one is currently meeting. So that's the option that you want to select if you read the indicator and you say, yep, I'm definitely doing this, and you have evidence to upload to show it. If you're not meeting it and it's something that you're not quite ready to work on, you read the indicator, you say, hey, this is something that we have, but I'm not ready to focus on that. I want to focus on some other areas and some other indicators. You can select not currently meeting or not meeting at this time. Another option that we've added that's a new feature that's pretty cool is the option not meeting at this time, create a goal in the quality improvement plan. So when you select this option, it doesn't require that you upload any evidence because you're not meeting the indicator, but it'll automatically create a goal for you in your quality improvement plan. When it creates the goal, you still need to go back to your quality improvement plan, open that goal, and add more details. So you want to make sure you go into that goal and you assign it to someone, you add a due date, and you add some steps to be able to meet it. And then the final option that programs can select is a new one, which is not aligned to program philosophy. And this option is meant to be for indicators that really don't meet what your program is looking at. So for example, we have an indicator that talks about a curriculum and using a tool from our approved list. Well, maybe that doesn't align to the beliefs or values or needs of your program and the families and children that you serve. So you can select that not aligned to program philosophy option to indicate that this doesn't meet the goals of the program and is not something that you want to work on right now. So those are the 4 different options that programs can select. Yes, and I see we were putting in the chat. If you have any questions, yes, drop them in there. We're happy to help. And then another tip and trick, the final one that I'm talking about is the comment feature. So when you upload evidence into the self-reflection and you add those documents, you'll notice that a little box appears that you can type into. And so that little comment box is a great tool and resource that you can use to clarify the evidence that you're uploading, specifically for the validator. So helpful things that you can write in there are page numbers. For example, there's an indicator that's looking for very specific items in your handbook or contract. So you can put in that comment box the page number that the validator can find those specific things. Other important things you can put in that comment box that are helpful are things that explain or clarify what the document is. So for example, let's say you upload a photo, you might want to put in there which classroom that photo is of. Or if you are uploading a document and you want to explain what it means. So if you're uploading like a form that you've completed for families that you're giving to them at conferences, you might want to put a little note to say, we use this form during conferences, and explain that process to the validator so that it's clear. The final piece that's really important that you can use this comment feature for is to explain how the document is shared. Several of the indicators ask how the document or description or evidence that you're uploading is shared with either families or staff. So you can put right in this comment box how that's shared, which can help the validator and mean that you'll have less evidence to upload later. And I'm going to pass it off to one of my other validators to go into some other tips and tricks.
All right, thank you, Nicole. So we're gonna start with on my end with the bullets and the indicators. So when you're reviewing the indicators in the self-reflection, some do include bullets. When determining if you are currently meeting the intent of the indicator, make sure that you are that your evidence addresses all of the bullet points within the indicator. And then we're going to move on to reports and the self-reflection. So as you're thinking about completing the process of earning a quality level, now is the time to start taking training in my registry related to the professional development quality indicators and completing the membership process. The following are some key points to keep in mind regarding PD and qualifications and what validators will be looking for to verify the program is meeting the intent of the indicator. The validator will only review the self-reflection PD report and the staff qualification report located in the self-reflection. As this report, hello, what was that? I thought someone said something, sorry. As the report locks at the same time the self-reflection is submitted for validation, the report should be reviewed right before submitting the self-reflection. And then also only review the self-reflection PD report located in the self-reflection only to prepare for the validation. Please know that the reports located in the reports tab of the organization profile pull in all training and are continuously updated. Therefore, you should not review these as you prepare for the validation, as the data may be different than when it was reviewed by the validator.
Tracy, before you move to the next slide, just want to say one thing. So we did get a question in the chat about if you can go back in and add comments prior to the validator coming. So validators are actually going to call you over the phone. We do not come on site. The assessors will come on site to observe the program after your validation is completed.
That's so weird.
But if you do not add your comments in the very beginning, you also cannot go back in and add them later on unless you upload a new document.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, and I believe I saw another question come in, and now I'm trying to find it about the
Oh.
PD reports. So when we're looking at the professional development reports, do we only look at staff that are listed in the indicator? So for example, would we look at staff who are listed as other or substitutes? We will not. We are only looking at the staff position titles that are called out in the indicators. So that would be your administrator director, your owner operator, if it says that, and then your leads and assistant staff. We do not look at subs, others, maybe a floating staff. We would not look at those for the professional development or qualifications. All right, and I think those were the two questions in there. So Tracy, I will mute and let you keep going.
All right, thank you. Okay, so next we're going to go over the help options in the self-reflection. The self-reflection includes help icons displayed as a question mark that share helpful information like examples of evidence. Each indicator with an area to upload evidence includes this supportive information. If you select the question mark, you can review the information, or you can view the information, excuse me. Okay, and then lastly, for me, we have the description indicators. So many indicators in the self-reflection ask for a description of something and how the description is shared. It's important to know that you must look at the description and how it's shared as two separate things. Programs must show evidence of both pieces to meet the intent of the indicator. So it's something we're running into more and more. So definitely have those two pieces. Let's see here. So the description is the written description can be in any format the program chooses: the handbook, enrollment packet, letters, emails to family, etc. And then how it's shared is if it's included in the family or staff handbook, there does not need to be an additional piece of evidence. And then review for the description piece again, review the indicator to determine if the description needs to be program specific. For example, indicators that use the language on how they are, on how they are similar. And then also how it's shared, review the indicator to see who the indicator requires it to be shared with. And then description cannot be written in the comment box. And then how it's shared can be written in the comment box. That's how you compare the two, I guess, side by side. And then I'm going to pass off the next bit of information, I believe, to Allison.
Yes, thank you, Tracy. So I am going to be going over shows indicators. And when an indicator begins with the language, the program shows how, programs must demonstrate how they communicate the information and ways they implement it. This requires two pieces of evidence. The first piece should describe how the information is shared with families, and then the second piece should show how the indicator is being implemented or carried out in the program. And to share an example, let's use the indicator FCP1, which states program shows how it gives information to families about children's individual developmental progress. And you could consider uploading one example from each column in the chart to provide the two required types of evidence. So some sample communication evidence, newsletters about the child assessment tool and how teachers complete it. Written communication to a family about their child's development, or a handbook with a section about how children's development is tracked and shared back with the families. And then sample implementation evidence. It could be upcoming conference schedule and sign-up sheets, staff policy on how to share developmental information with families, or a complete child development record and notes for one child. And once you have applied for validation and on-site observation, you have an opportunity to update the self-reflection based on the quality improvements you have made. You will want to update the self-reflection to show any improvements that are related to the indicators ahead of your validation. When you are working with your quality improvement coach to see if you're ready for validation and on-site observation, discuss the improvements you have made to determine if they were related to an indicator. And then the next,
Allison,
yes.
I'm going to pause you for 1 second because we did just get a question that came in the chat about what about pictures to show improvements? So pictures could be used for evidence of indicators. Some indicators, we definitely are going to want to see what your written procedures are. But pictures could absolutely be uploaded to show evidence of the indicators. Also, if you set a quality improvement goal, that you wanted to implement something in a little bit of a different way, that's when we also would ask that you upload or update to those indicators that maybe that quality improvement goal related to.
Thanks, Melissa. So we will move on to the next slide. The next slide is choosing to have a validation phone call. So we go ahead and move it to that slide. Thank you. And having a validation phone call provides you an opportunity to ask questions about the validation and on-site observation process and to upload additional evidence. And now I am going to pass it off to Melissa to go over some resources.
Thanks, Allison. Before we go to resources or before I really get into talking about them, we did get one more question in the chat about if the professional development and staff qualification reports update at this time. So your staff qualification and professional development reports continuously update, which is why when you get to submitting the validation or submitting the self-reflection for validation, you will notice after you do that, you have two reports under that reports drop down. You'll have a locked or a program snapshot report, and a program live report. Validators will only be using the program snapshot report because that locks when you submit the self-reflection for validation. So if you later on go back into your self-reflection, you will notice that maybe one of them looks a little different than the others. So they do continuously update, but one does get locked, and that's the one that we use for validation purposes. All right, so a couple resources to share with you all. Candace, if you want to switch us to the next slide, that would be helpful. Thank you. The first resource that we have available that is going to be really helpful when you work through the self-reflection is the quality indicator guidance document. This document is on the website, and we'll put the link in the chat here for you in just 1 second. And it is also available in Arabic, English, Spanish, and Swahili for you to use. Along with these guidance documents, there is also a frequently asked questions document you can find on the same page. That just has a little more information for you. All right, and Candace, if you want to take us to the next one. All right, this next slide here is going to talk about the Great Start to Quality YouTube channel. We have put out multiple videos to help you understand the steps in the process and actually show you how you can go about completing those steps. In specific, there is a whole playlist that is designed with the steps. So if you were to go in there, you can watch one video just about your quality improvement plan. There is a video about each of the applications and an entire video on how to complete that self-reflection, which calls out those little question mark icons with additional information and how to upload evidence that we would walk you through. Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm glad you think that those videos are helpful. All right. And the last resource that we want to call out is as you're working on that self-reflection and you're looking at that professional development report, we do have specific trainings that count for those PD indicators. And so if you are looking to find one specific training that might count for it, we are going to encourage you to use the filters on the statewide training calendar. Those filters, the first one you're going to do is the area of focus, and you're going to make that great start to quality. And then you will get a section that says topic. Each of those topics are aligned to the professional development indicators. All right. Perfect. And now we are going to move this over to Christy. Christy's going to share a couple updates with us and then get us into some questions at question time.
Yeah, so I too am going to pause here and sort of reflect. So thank you, women, for helping with sharing that information about the validation process. One of the things that I want to point out, and I hope that you're all sort of taking away from what was shared today, is in the prior process, evidence was a little bit loosey-goosey, right? If you had a policy or something written, it was kosher. And what the advisory committee and others really wanted to sort of impart was policies are great, but only if they're implemented. And so we really want programs to be able to demonstrate, how are you sharing that information? What does that look like in practice? How are you improving the quality of your program? So I'm hoping that that is ringing true for all of you and you're understanding why we're asking for both the policy and then the evidence of how that's sort of being implemented. And so I will pause there and see if there are any questions specifically about the validation process, the validation call, or any of the evidence that might be needed. Certainly throw something in the chat, raise your hand, would be happy to unmute you.
I do have a question about the PD. Is this an okay time to ask that?
Absolutely.
Okay. I have a little bit of a struggle wrapping my head around the PD as far as trying to create the PD plans for my staff. So the validation is every 2 years. but the PD only looks at the 12 months prior to your SAS submission, correct?
Yes, that's correct, Marcy. So we look 12 months back from the date you submit the self-reflection for validation.
Okay. So for example, I just finished 2 of my sites, SASs, and are waiting for our validation visit. So technically it's another year before we would have to really worry that they're getting all of those topics in. Like I might have to just guesstimate when I would be submitting the SAS next and then go 12 months prior to that, because it's a little bit tricky where like within that 12 months, they may have taken it a little earlier in that year and then a little later in the next year. And so they would have missed that 12-month window for that particular topic. You have any suggestions or insight into how to make that a little easier?
Yeah, I don't really have any suggestions or insight on how to make that part easier for you, but I do think that you're bringing kind of something that maybe we didn't cover in here up. And that is that you do not have to meet everyone or the majority of the indicators to continue moving forward. So in the prior process that we used, you had to meet a certain number or a threshold of indicators. In this reimagined process, you now only need to meet at a minimum 1 quality indicator to have an on-site observation. So if you're not meeting the indicator, they're not scored. There's no point value to them anymore, and that's okay. So I don't, it's not going to impact you or hinder you from moving on in the process anymore.
Okay. So if you have a couple staff that are missing, say, a PD, a training in anti-bias for that 12-month window, but they're meeting, say, all the other topics, I mean, does that affect your overall level?
So it won't impact your overall level. We would just, if you had 1 staff or a couple staff that didn't have those professional development hours for that specific PD indicator, we just wouldn't be able to say that you are currently meeting it.
Okay. My organization is very focused on making sure we're getting the highest level possible. So I'm just trying to like wrap my head around how I'm going to make this work for staff.
Yeah, you can still definitely get to the highest quality level of demonstrating quality without meeting all of the indicators.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
A
Thank
little
you.
different this time.
So Marcy, I think you highlight a really important, impactful point about this whole reimagine process is that previously so many programs would get stuck. We know staff turns over and it would be this constant battle to try and get folks the training that they need in a quick amount of time, and it's probably not the highest quality, and maybe not the best reflection of your overall quality. And so we didn't want you to get knocked down or points taken away or this sort of negative connotation that was happening before, if that can't happen. And so we appreciate that you want to make that true. And my sense is that other programs do too, but it's not going to affect you moving forward to get to demonstrating quality. So hopefully that helps everyone.
All right. There is one other question in the chat from Elizabeth. Aside from policy implementation, what are some of the most common errors or inadequacies we're seeing from providers who are coming through validation? I don't really know that anything would be an inadequacy. I think really what we're seeing is not seeing both pieces of a description indicator or both pieces of how an indicator is shared or those shows indicators coming through for validation. So just really making sure that you're reading the indicator and hitting both points when you're uploading evidence.
I would also, oh, sorry. I would say a couple other things that we're seeing that folks maybe aren't realizing things they have to upload is making sure everything for every classroom and every age group that you serve So a lot of programs have school age and have before and after programs that maybe they weren't uploading for previously, and we are looking for that now. So we want to make sure we see evidence for those classrooms and ages of children as well. And with daily schedules and natural light and all of those things, we need to see evidence for every single classroom. So we're sometimes seeing folks not doing that and asking for more during the validation calls.
Thanks, Nicole. That was really a helpful point too. But Rebecca, I see that you also have your hand up.
Yeah, I just had a question. When you talked about staff turnover, we all experience that quite regularly. How do you, I guess, throughout the process, this process can take up to 6 months or longer for the validation visit. How do you account for staff that may have been onboarded or exited the program throughout that process? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rebecca. And just as a reminder, so for validation, we're just calling you over the phone. We are not coming out to the program. So when we look at like staff qualifications and professional development, we're really going to look at those reports to see end dates or start dates for your staff. If you're looking at PD, we do prorate PD, and that information is on the website, and we can get that link in the chat here too for you. So we are not going to be looking to see that a staff who's been hired for 3 months has 24 hours of professional development. Does that help address your question, or do you have any other wonderings?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Melissa, it looks like there's another question in the chat. So for levels and grant, a business plan is needed. Where can I find resources to write that plan?
I'm actually going to recommend that you reach out to your quality improvement specialist and your quality improvement coach at your resource centers. I don't believe we have a whole lot of resources right now on our website. There might be a couple for some business sustainability plans and how to write those, but your quality improvement specialists and your quality improvement coaches at your resource centers will likely have some more tailored supports to offer you. Anybody else have any other questions about validation specific things?
And certainly if you think of something, we can come back to it. We have some time for question and answer at the end. So Candace, if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and pop the PowerPoint back up, and then we'll move on to a couple of other little nuggets for you today. Thanks so much. Next slide is great, thanks. Okay, so two sort of unrelated things to validation. A couple of things I wanted to share with you. So we're doing some family search updates. Over the course of the creation of the Reimagine process with Great Start to Quality, we had two entities really help us think about what's on our website, how both all providers, families, our staff use the website, and we got some really great feedback. And one of the biggest pieces is from families, and certainly we want to give them what they need. And we heard a resounding sense of there's not enough detailed information. And so these screenshots here, which are probably a little bit tricky to see, are representations of what is inside your public profile. And they're an expansion of what was there before, but really give a lot of detail about openings, enrollments, cost of care at your program, what hours and children that you serve, so that when families are looking, they can really find the information that they need. I can't stress enough to all of you about how important it is to access your program profile. We did a huge campaign with families. They're coming to our website in droves, and they're having a hard time finding information because a lot of it's not there. And I know it feels like one more thing to do, but it's a really great marketing tool for you and your program. And I know we're all working really hard to fill our programs and meet the needs. So know that, and even what you see here on the screen will change a little bit. We will continuously be updating the public search feature to give families what they need. Certainly if you have questions or if you have your own suggestions of what might be helpful for us to allow you to share with families, we're happy to hear that. And you can certainly send that to our Great Start to Quality at ecicforkids.org email address. So know you'll see some of those things updating and changing on your profile. Any questions about that piece? Are there any plans in the works to integrate systems between licensing, DHS, and Great Start to Quality? So much of this information is already available. So that is a great segue into my next little nugget. And Candace, you don't need to change the slide. So we are integrated, if you can believe it. We have data shares that happen every night with all of those programs. So the foundation for our search feature, as well as my registry, is licensing. And as you all may know, they changed their system to CHIRP, which stands for something lovely that I don't quite recall. And I apologize to my partners for that. And so when that happened, it changed a little bit of our data, actually. And so we've heard from some of you that, oh my gosh, my corrective action plan date is wrong, or I never had a corrective action plan. Why is there a date there at all? And that's because of the data that we received from child care licensing, and we're working through that with them. And so if you're seeing those things that don't look quite right, just let us know. We'd be happy to help you through that. But know that that is true. And so we share that data with them every single night. And then with DHHS or CDC, who does the subsidy payments, in order for programs to get paid, their increased rate once they have a increased quality level, we share that with that information with them on a weekly basis, so that when programs bill, you have the right rate of pay. So they are all integrated. Could it be smoother? Certainly, but they are good partners, and we do make those connections. So great question. Probably more technical than you needed, but that happens. So, other questions? Thanks, Nicole. Appreciate that. Allison, go ahead and unmute.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
I had a question about you were talking about the family search updates. Since the system has changed, how have you been communicating with families on what the different levels mean?
Sure, that's a great question. So they get a little bit of information. We talk about and connect to that that flower, we call it the flower sort of icon. And then also in the system, there's a link on your quality level. So if you are demonstrating quality, a family can actually select that link, and there's a document that talks about what each level means and what providers have to do to get there. And so it's really in sort of clear cut terms, and we can share that when we share the recording with folks, but that is available to them as well. Great question. And we've certainly updated our website pages. I guess I should say that too. So families have a whole section on the website that talks about what Great Start to Quality is, what it means for them and their family, how they get more resources. So that's a really good place to point families. I will also say there is a marketing page for providers. So if you're interested in brochures or flyers to print and put in your enrollment packets, those are available for you. If you're interested in language to put in your email signature to let families know that high quality is important to you and you're participating in Great Start to Quality, that's there as well. Thank you very much to my colleagues who are throwing those links at you left and right. So there's lots of really good stuff on our website. So I do encourage you to take a look at that. Good question. Others?
I do have a question. Somebody had mentioned the business sustainability plan. I do have a few sites that are just a single GSRP classroom. So it's not technically a business. We're not getting money from them. It's a state funded program. So would that be a place where it would make sense to mark not aligned with the philosophy?
Yeah, Marcy, I think that's a really good option. I would also encourage you to think, if that GSRP funding went away, is there a way you could plan to sustain that program or keep those doors open for the children in the area that you're serving?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions before we move on? Okay, next slide. So another really fantastic resource that I wanted to share with you all, and I think we just gave a real brief sort of shout out for it last time that we talked, but I do want to remind you all that we have a job board on the Great Start to Quality website. It does encompass all early care and education kinds of positions across the state. Thank you, Candace, for throwing that link in there as well. It is for providers, for ISDs, for anyone that's in the field to post job openings. You'll see that we currently have 42 openings across the state. It does indicate the title and location, so that's really helpful. Certainly would encourage you all to share it with your colleagues. If you have postings that you'd like us to get up there for you, happy to do that. I would ask that you visit the site there, and there's a specific email address to send things to. And we will get that up there. And then we also send you applicants' resumes and cover letters and things like that once they do indicate interest. We would also encourage you to share it with colleagues that are looking for positions to let them know that it is a great resource for them as well. So that is up and running. And let me know if you have any questions about that piece. Great. We look forward to it growing, so that's really exciting. So now we'll just open it up to questions related to Great Start to Quality in general. We've spent a lot of time talking about the validation process and the self-reflection. But if folks have other questions or related questions, that's just fine. Happy to take those now.
I don't know if this question, my name is Cheryl, and I don't understand why my computer isn't showing my face, but
No
I
worries.
don't know if this would be a question for all of you or if it would be for Kristen, my support person. I was in the process of setting up to be do the indicators, and because my our particular date was this past December. It just passed. So in the summer and at the beginning of September, I submitted all the documents, submitted my goal, and then I received indication that the validator would be getting to me. But then I was also told that I have to start the process all over again. So would that be something I would just discuss with Kristen, or because we're a long-standing, we were already demonstrating quality. And so now I went down because they said the final self-assessment wasn't submitted. Or is that something I would talk to you guys about, or Kristen?
Either one is great. So I maybe start with Kristen. Kristen will then reach out to us and we can dig into the system. It sounds like a
Okay.
system issue to me. So
Okay.
yeah, want to connect with her and then we'll get to the bottom of what's happening.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry that's true. Other questions? Got a quiet group today, and that is just fine.
I have a question.
Yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
a question slash, I have like I have a to-do list brain. And you know, there are a lot of steps in this process. And like maybe Cheryl said it, these could take up to 6 months. And it's hard to keep track of that kind of stuff when you have other things that you're doing, right? A lot of the home providers are taking care of children all day long, and then they're doing their
Absolutely.
trainings, and then they're doing this. But you know, for myself, I do like about 15 to 17 different sites for this. And I would find it really helpful if like there was some sort of sidebar maybe that showed me like what step I was on
Mm.
and what step I was going to, like, just so I know for myself. I've been trying, and thank you to Candace for putting up with me. But I try to do 2 at a time, so that I don't get bogged down with all the different steps. So that was just kind of my thought, you know, like the step that you're on is a little bit larger font than the rest of them, so you know where you've been and where you're going.
So like a progress bar almost.
Hi, Candace. Yes.
And you are getting a great suggestion comments in the chat there. So it sounds like that will be helpful for others as well. So that's great. Okay, thank you for that suggestion. I'll ask at this point in our conversation, we have about 10 minutes left. The last time we opened up the conversation to ideas for the next time that we're together. So we'll be doing this again in February. I think at our first one, we talked quite a bit about the self-reflection and then also the on-site observation process. And so certainly we're thinking about leaning into that for our next conversation, but would love to get your ideas and things maybe you'd like us to plan for our next conversation. All right, well, I'm not going to keep anyone unnecessarily. If you think of anything, on-site observation process, perfect, sounds good. If you think of anything, certainly email us at greatsearchquality@ecic4kids.org or give your resource centers a call at the 877-614-7328 number. We want to hear from you. We are here to support you through the process. Thank you again to my amazing colleagues on the validation team for sharing their tips, tricks, and expertise about that process. We really appreciate you. Like I said, our next opportunity to hang out with one another is February 14th. The registration link is there in the chat, so please do register and pop that on your calendar. And we hope to see you all then. Thank you so much. Take care.